Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today, I am joined by Jonathan Burns. How you doing today, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Thanks for having me on the show, buddy. How
Hey,
you
no,
doing?
I'm doing great, and this is such an honor for me. John is an accomplished editor. Just a little bit so you guys can know who he is. He's a videographer, film critic. Started in reality TV as just a humble PA. John has worked on shows such as Northwood Law, Flippin' Kitchen with Tino, and On the Case with Paul Azan. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but
You got it. You got it.
okay. Currently, he can be seen every week, which is how I was introduced to him through Burns Reviews on YouTube, where he premieres videos, side-by-side comparisons with audio commentary tracks. You've also been published in articles for Screen Rant, MovieWeb, comicbook.com, CBR, Grunge, Joe Blow, and Game Pressure. Something else I want to talk about with Burns Reviews. You also do early movie reviews, Blu-ray trips, and ending explained videos, which is actually how I found you. So what spurred you to start doing Burns Reviews?
It's funny. I mean, it kind of goes into the movie we're talking about today because it actually did inspire me a little bit in the very beginning. But I was a film major in college, and then I went to work in reality TV. And I remember one of the things I said early on in reality TV was like, yeah, okay, great, but what can you show me as like a demo? Like, what can you, like a reel? Like, can you show me things you've edited or filmed or done? And I kind of didn't, but I always loved film. And I'm probably inspired by like the same people who kind of do what I do, the Chris Stuckmans, the Jeremy Johns, the John Flickingers, you name it. That was kind of booming in, I guess, 2010, 11. I don't know. It's kind of a blur. But yeah, so I did that just so that I would have something to show and edit and practice on. And then I just got really into it, because I
Right.
love movies. Then, the idea of becoming like a director or like a real editor all the time just kind of felt kind of meh to me. I got really into it. I love the community. I love talking to people. I like stuff like we're doing right now. I really loved it. And I love editing, which is why I do like the side by sides and edit explains. And yeah, I never really looked back. It's just something I'm really passionate about.
And I don't think people that, and this is not a knock at anybody, please don't think I'm being condescending or anything like that. But I don't think anybody that hasn't done what we're doing knows how much work and yet fun goes into what you do. I'm with you. I love to edit. I love the editing process. I love watching these things come together. Going from my head to my heart to my hands out into a screen. I love it, man. I love writing. I love editing and being able to work with peers and different people that do the same type of things, whether it's actors and actresses or YouTubers, even if it's humble PAs, man, just working with people that are into the genre and into movies just as much as I am is so rad. And not only is the editing fun and hard and all this, the questions and answers, but just meeting new people and being able to expand our horizons. And by the time you guys have seen this, I've worked with John again on our live episode about our top 10 most disappointing horror movies. So
That's
I hope
right.
you guys enjoyed that just as much as you enjoy this. Now, John, before we get into the reason why we're here, I do want to remind everybody we are at the top of the show. The opening credits have just scrolled across the screen. So I want you to know here right off the top, all the links for his social media is right down here in the description. So make sure you're giving him a follow, subscribing on YouTube. Check out Burns Reviews. Like I said, his Ending Explains is what really introduced me to him. I love watching Ending Explains, and I love watching other people's different opinions on the same films that I've seen. And me and him had a lot of fun watching what he did and then talking about his Ending Explained videos. So make sure you're checking those out because it's a whole lot of fun to get somebody else's perspective on the same movie that you've watched as well. So those
And you
links
know
are down
what's
in the description.
what's kind of funny about those end to explain videos is like that's more of a brand than it is like what the video is. Like it does do that, but it's definitely grown from that. Like I just don't
Oh,
know how to properly title a deep dive video essay into a movie without people being like, "What is this?" Skip. But you label it
right.
end explained, and it's like, but yeah, we go into like the box office, we go into the influences, the
Yeah.
directors, the writing, the whole everything that I love to watch. I try to put back into a video that I like to make. It's great.
And that's what I was
So
going to say. Like with your Ending Explains, it's not just talking about the ending of the film. You're going to give a deep dive into every possible thing that you, much like me, as you guys can see in the background there, we're physical media guys.
yeah, we get nerdy
I
with
grew up,
it.
yeah, dude, I grew up in a video store. My parents owned a video store growing up. So physical media for me is very important. And watching, all special features, audio commentaries, deleted scenes, extended scenes, alternate endings, behind the scenes stuff with the cast and crew is all very important to me. And you get a whole lot of that information when you watch his Ending Explained. So
Thank you.
right there, make sure you're checking it out.
Thanks, man.
Well, I mean, now we know that you do ending explains, but now I want to go back and find out the beginning explained. I want to find
Okay.
out how horror started for you, my friend. Let's go back to the past and let's
Okay.
talk about how horror started for you. Your first horror movie, and John, your first horror movie was.
Well, I mean, I have I sent you an email. I don't know how much you want me to go into it. I can speed around it with the honorable mentions and then get straight
Yeah.
into it, or do you want me to just get straight into it?
No, man. Give me your honorable
Okay.
mentions.
Okay. Honorable mentions. I have three quick ones. The first one that I think I ever saw that was a real like R rated movie. Actually, I don't even know if it's even R back then, but it was Psycho. I was like 8 or 9 years old. My mom showed it to me on VHS. I had no idea what it was. I had no concept of like a horror movie. And the scene that really stuck with me in that one was like the ending where Norman Bates is smiling at the camera. And at the time, I didn't know that they were transposing a skull over his face, which is so much creepier. And like on a subconscious level, I'm sure that messed me up as an 8-year-old. And funny enough, that kept me up for days. And then a year later, I'm in the movie house and I see a trailer with Vince Vaughn for the same movie, and it was like PTSD. It was like back in Nam. I'm like, ah, and it's like it's just that clip of him looking at the camera again. Terrible movie, but I didn't know because I'm 8 years old watching a trailer. So that was the first like touch of horror that really kind of like I noticed. Second one would be The Shining, which I'm sure you get a lot of. I'm sure a lot of people have been messed up by this movie. And it's not even what you would think it would be. Like I remember watching it late at night with my dad, who would pretty much let me watch any movie I wanted. And it was just like, all right, he's in the this house with his family, and it kind of feels like a drama. It doesn't even feel like a horror movie when you're getting into it and you have no concept of a horror movie. And then the old lady came out. I had the bathtub, and that was like, wow, okay. And that kind of freaked
Yeah.
me out. I left the room, I came back, and then by the time I came back, Jack Nicholson's going down the hallways yelling Danny, and he's got the axe. But the scene that really freaked me out on that one was like the jump cut to his frozen head. I don't know why. There's so many scary moments in that, but that kept me up where I was just like, it was so jarring. It threw me a curve. I didn't see it coming. So yeah, that one, and to this day, is probably one of my favorite, scariest movies. Third honorable mention I want to bring up real quick is because it's like the first movie I remember that, like, as like a 9 or 10 year old, gave me that thing where the movie's over, the lights go off, and you're creeping around the house and kind of peeking around the corner, going, "Is somebody in my home?" Like you're moving the shower curtain away.
Oh
You're
yeah.
like, like that was my first experience. Was The Ring. I was at my cousin's house. We were watching a big TV, probably with a VCR, same bit. And the part in that really messed me up, that kind of like stuck with me, was like the jump cut of the young girl in the closet, and they just show it real quick, and her eyes are all like, ah, and that was crazy. That got to me. So those are like the honorable mentions of like, okay, this is what horror is, and this is what really messes me up. But the
Well,
movie
you're
that really,
talking about when you talk about The Ring real quick, I don't think
sure,
people remember how truly effective that jump scare is if they haven't watched it in a while,
no,
because it really comes out of nowhere. Like you have her mom talking to Naomi Watts, and she's like, "I saw her face."
and
That
they double down. They do it later with the boyfriend, so it's just like,
yes,
oh. But yeah, those
yeah,
those are like my honorable threes. They were rough. I didn't really know what horror was. I was like 8 or 9 around that time. That's when I first started getting, because everything before that was like, Are You Afraid of the Dark, Goosebumps, made for kids horror, I guess. Like
sure,
I remember the Haunted Mask on TV was like a late night special, but nothing really in the horror genre.
right, yeah, and well, and also you talked about The Shining. The Room
Yeah,
217 key is right here all the time. Like that
that
movie's
is
so important to
awesome.
me as well.
Where'd you get that?
I want it. My wife got it for me. She is the money spender. I'm the one that's frugal. But yeah, she got that for me. I'm sure she got it online somewhere. But yeah, that's always here all the time, right in the background, because she knows how much that movie means to me. I think that's one of the best of Jack Nicholson's performances of all time. Like just everything he does in that movie is it's so fucking great, man. Like even like parts where he's just staring out the window into the snow and you see that
Wednesday.
blank look, like he's so great, man.
Yeah, I love that movie. Do you see Doctor Sleep?
I love it. I
Okay,
love
cool.
Dr.
Yeah,
Sleep.
anything Mike Flanagan is like chef's kiss. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And it's what's so funny about Dr. Sleep to me is for the first, you know, 2 acts, this movie could stand on its own as its own film. Then you
Sure.
get obviously all the fan service with the third act. But I also
Yeah.
think that Rose the Hat is one of the most underrated villains of all time. I love Rose the Hat, and she's so fucking scary. And every time you see her, like you're so anxious about what she's about to do after the little boy scene at the beginning. So Flanagan definitely knows what he's doing when it comes to
Oh,
film, and I
definitely.
love when he does Stephen King adaptions as well.
The fact that she's not phased at all by like the pool of blood coming off the elevators, and she's like, huh. Anyway, it just keeps going.
We got to talk about
Scream 2. Okay, so my backstory with this, and I will die on this hill with Scream 2 because it is my favorite Scream. Come at me. I don't care. It's superior in every way. The relationships are stronger. The themes are all there. You know, obviously it doesn't really work without the first movie. It's like the legs that hold it up, but it's like the Dark Knight to the Batman Begins to me. It's just like it gets it so right. Even down to using like Hans Zimmer's score from Broken Arrow. Every time Dewey comes on the screen, it's like that cowboy western. I think it's called Brothers. It's like down, 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 down. I'm like, this movie just slaps. So my backstory with this, my history with this is like Scream comes out in 1996. I'm too young. My parents are like, no way. I barely even know what it is. My older sister is like obsessed with it because like, you know, she's the right age. I want to say it's probably skip ahead to like 98 probably because I think Scream 2 is now on VHS having a blockbuster night. And I'm like, I really want to see it because everybody's obsessed with Scream. By this point, everyone's wearing the costumes for Halloween. And I'm like, what is this? Why? It really was like a social, like a culture thing. Like everybody was talking about it. And my dad finally caved and was like, all right, we're going to have a double feature. We're going to have blockbuster night. We got Scream 1 and Scream 2. And it was a double feature, which is such an odd way to watch it, but it does really work. And Scream 1, I'm like, all right, you know, whatever. I mean, it was scary as shit. Like that Drew Barrymore scene is crazy. But Scream 2, you know, and especially more as time has gone on, it's just a more enjoyable film, you know. You always talk about on your podcast, which I love, by the way. I was watching a couple of episodes. It's great.
Thank you, man.
No, it's really good. You know, I'll definitely shout you guys out, and I'd love to see you guys like have a glow up because you guys are really underrated. I love the format. I love the guests you have. It's really great.
Thank you. That really means a lot to us. We work very hard to try to make this good.
It's really great. I love the questions, the format, all of it. But going into like your main question is like, what is the scene that sticks with you? I guess the scene that really stuck with me was when they killed off Randy in Scream 2. Because I watched Scream 1 and I'm going, okay, this guy is kind of like your narrator. He's the guy that's telling you the rules, you know, the things you know, I'll be right back, all of that. And even when we get into Scream 2, and it's probably the best scene in the movie for me, or one of many, is when Randy and Dewey are getting some Baskin Robbins and like they're just like hanging out. It's such a fun little scene away from all the drama and the horror. It's just like, again, you really feel the relationships coming together because all these characters have trauma and PTSD and they share that, and it's just a sweet movie in so many ways. Even the scene where he shows up, Dewey, and like Sydney sees him and like they play that music and they kind of come together.
That's
I think yeah, it's so well done and like it just feels like a warm hug, and I don't know what it is. It's just you don't get that in a lot of horror movies. But
you love the scene you're talking about with Dewey and Randy when he's like, 1, the body count is always higher. 2, the more blood, more gore. You know, like
Carnage Candy.
Like, yes, dude, it's such a great scene. I know right now one of my viewers, J-Dev, is doing fucking somersaults around his house because you choose Scream 2 over Scream. Now look, I'm with you for the most part. I love Scream 2 so much, but the third act for me is so much weaker than the original third act. I don't like the styrofoam rocks falling on Debbie, and they climb over Ghostface in the police car but don't pull his mask off. Like, but I do love like what a lot of people shit on in this movie. Like you were talking about the relationships, and like this has the fat kid from Stand By Me singing "I Think I Love You"
Jerry O'Connell, yeah.
Jerry O'Connell, you know, on the table. So I love that scene, you know, I love big grand gestures, you know, like that's me, that's who I am. I'm a romantic at heart, and you know, seeing stuff like that to me is just so much fun, and I believe it. You know what I mean? Like, I totally believe Jerry O'Connell in this movie and how genuine he is and his love for Sydney. So I
Yeah.
love the Scream franchise. It's very important to me. And Scream 2 is right up there with the movies that really, really made me realize that horror can be fun and hip, but not corny. So
Right.
I'm very excited for the chance to have this conversation because I have yet to talk about this film. So I'm very
Awesome.
excited to really dive deep into this. Now we talked about which scene affected you the most with Randy
Well, yeah,
being killed.
and I just won't. I don't want to forget the thought I had.
Okay, go ahead.
But yeah, that scene kind of threw me because like this is the narrator, right? Like he's the guy that's traveled. Like he's the meta guy. You don't expect the meta guy to be killed off. And it's so jarring because A, you don't see it coming. It's daytime. They're on the courtyard. You know, you think in your head like Dewey geographically is only like 100 yards away with Gail. I'm like, you don't see it coming. And then when I guess it's she, because I think it is Mrs. Loomis doing the stabbing,
Yeah.
because she admits it later. She's like, I get a little knife happy with Randy. But when she's stabbing him, it sounds like this like weird squeaky toy. It's like this cheep cheep. I can't even do it, but if you hear it, it sounds like a squeaky toy or like a bath toy or something. That's just like, it's the most jarring thing. And when they open that door, the blood, man, it's like around his eyes, it's like everywhere. Gail gives out that scream, and it's actually the what really sets the movie into motion, because you have the scene where they're all like in the police department, and like, you know, Cotton is pulling some bullshit of like trying to like stir up trouble and all that, and they're talking about Randy. I got to call Randy's mom. It's like that call is already made. But the scene that really kicks into high gear for me is like with Gail, because Gail has been a cold-hearted bitch the entire time. They set it up nicely with the book. By the way, if ever there was a prop I wanted from this movie, it's that book. That would be the greatest book ever. They should do like the novelization of the first movie and rewrite it from the point of view from Gail. That would sell like hotcakes. But the scene that's really where it kicks it in is like she comes out, she's being trolled by Cotton. She's being trolled by Debbie Saltz and the other news reporters. And then finally she's being trolled by Dewey, who's just like, is this just another, you know, Academy Award performance from Gail Weathers? And she's just like, there's no fucking cameras here. I just want to find this fucker. Right. And he's like, so, and it swells up. And that's when the movie kind of launches for me. And like this, the train is just full steam ahead.
I love Dewey in that scene. Page 37.
Oozes with piney sour.
That's what I'm talking about in this movie. Like the comedy for me in this movie lands so well. Like in his faces as he's talking about it, oozed with inexperience. You know,
I love their relationship. It is so well done. I don't know why. Maybe it feels kind of real. Like they're not like the prettiest people on the planet, maybe. I mean, I guess, well, she is, but like he's kind of relatable, and you feel like people kind of talk this way. They kind of bicker and go back and forth, and then before you know it, they're making up and making out. And I'm like, that's relatable to me. It's just like I've seen that, I've experienced that, and it's fun. It's just fun to watch. I can't explain it more than that.
Well, and I think it's obvious, you know, their real life chemistry pours out on the screen. I think that's another thing about it. You know, the real life chemistry between those two really pours out on the screen. And another thing that doesn't get talked about a lot, because when we were young and we were kids, we didn't pay that much attention to everything. So for a lot of us, at least the people in my age range, Dewey died at the end of Scream 1 to us. You know, we didn't realize that was him on the stretcher doing all that, you know. So to see him back, I think was kind of like a pleasant surprise of like, oh, so I think we kind of like appreciated Dewey more in this film. Because like I said, in the first time when I was a little boy watching, I never even noticed they were putting Dewey and he was on that stretcher giving the thumbs up. To me, he was dead. You know, Dewey died in the first one. And then, you know, you go back after you see part 2 and you watch, you're like, oh, that is him. Okay, now I get it. I'm a dumb 8-year-old, you know? So I think that's another thing about this movie. You get that deeper appreciation for Dewey because you thought you lost him in the first one.
Absolutely. And I love like the camaraderie and like the call to arms. It's like he could have just as easily stayed at home and been like, good luck to them. But he's like, he's there. Like he's there. Sydney's there. And they're like, we have to figure this out now. Like we're going to be here for each other. We're going to figure it out. And I don't know, like, I feel like you don't really see that a lot in a lot of these horror franchises. You definitely don't get this sort of consistency with bringing back the cast with all the arcs. Of like, it's really, really well done. I don't think it's ever been matched that well to have the core 3 keep coming back again and again and again.
when you look at this, what I love about the Scream franchise, and this is something I've talked about before, Nightmare on Elm Street, it's Freddy Krueger.
Right.
Friday the 13th, it's Jason Voorhees. Scream, it's Ghostface and Sidney Gale Dewey. Like it's the villain, but it's also your heroes that you're always rooting for too. And the great thing about this is it's always the same killer in the Scream movies, but it's always a different killer in the Scream movies.
Which
you
I
always
love.
have this. Me too. Like there's always that who is it, who done it aspect. And Wes Craven obviously did it phenomenally throughout his lifetime. And I'm very excited for Scream 5, which I will continue to call it until the day I fucking die. I will never call it Scream. But what are your expectations about Scream 5 coming up?
I mean, hot take, I would absolutely love it if they went for like Gale and Dewey are the two killers. That would be such a fuck you, and it would really get back to the core of the first movie of, oh my god, they killed Drew Barrymore. Oh my god, the red herring was the killer. Like, because the whole movie, they're like, it's a boyfriend. They really mess with your head in that first movie. You're right. The second movie is kind of like, you know, that third act is a little sloppy. I do love how Timothy Olyphant is just chewing the scenery, though. He's going for it. Like, that was my first recognition of Timothy Olyphant. I'm like, this guy is great. I don't know why. He's kind of like Jack in The Shining. I mean, that's high praise, I know. But he's just like, he knows what movies he's in, and he's just going for it. He's like, oh, Sid, you got a Linda Hamilton thing going on. Huh? No, I like it. You know, it's great when he's doing the boyfriend killer. He knows exactly what's going on. I mean, yeah, I do think it's dumb that he's trying to blame the movies, but you know, he's a psycho, and I just kind of roll with it. You know,
I love how he introduces Debbie. You know, when he gets that big over the top,
Billy's mother. Nice twist, huh? Didn't see it coming, did you?
I wish you would have had more of him in the movie. You know, 'cause you got the big thing at the beginning when you realize Joshua Jackson is evil in the movie because he says that House 2 was better than House.
House 2, the second story.
But, you know, him chewing the scenery, even there, where they're talking about sequels suck, and like he's so, like, you know, right away you like this character, you're drawn to this character because of his charisma. So right. I wish we could have got more of him. You know, you got him there, then you got him in the cafeteria clapping along to I Think I Love You, hamming it up. But I would have loved to have seen more of him throughout the film. That's the biggest downfall to me, is having his charisma off screen so much in the film.
I think the problem is that, like, if you read the backstory of this movie, is that they had to keep changing who the killer was because there was leaks constantly. Like, I think Haley was the original killer, and I think it was supposed to be Haley and maybe Mrs. Loomis. There's like several drafts, and I'm mixing them up in my head a little bit. But Haley was supposed to be the killer, and it leaked. And there was also Kevin Williamson wrote this version where he even put in the notes to Wes, he's like, it's not finished yet, but this is what it's going to be. It's the same bit where Cotton saves Sydney from Debbie Salt's Mrs. Loomis. And for whatever reason, he's like, but I'm still mad that you sent me to jail, and now I'm going to kill you. They go up to the catwalk, they have a little scuffle, and I think they both die. I think it's like she kills him, and then she succumbs to like her wounds and then just like dies. Credits.
Well, I'm glad that didn't happen.
Yeah, it would have been really rough for that trilogy that they were talking about. But yeah, it's really interesting. If you ever look up the screenplays that weren't used for Scream 2, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on. And the fact that this movie came out 1 year after the original, and they were basically writing it on the set, and it's still this good. Mm-hmm. I mean, that alone just is like amazing to me.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm a huge fan of it, so I'm not going to shit on it. But just the third act really bums me out. That's all I'm going to say. The third act.
What about the third act? Is it? I know the rocks, like the styrofoam rock, like the rocks, and like they're made of foam, and
like everything after they crawl over Ghostface in the police car is completely unbelievable to me.
Well, sure.
Sydney's going to run away, and then she runs to the auditorium. Right. Why wouldn't you run somewhere safer to me? When she's chopping down all the stuff and all the, you know, play rocks and stuff are falling on Debbie, like it gets so over the top that it's almost unbelievable to me there at the end, which is so opposite of how the first two acts are to me. The first two acts are so cohesive and tight, and it kind of blows apart there in the third. But again, I would rather watch Scream 2 than probably 88% of any other horror movies out there. You know, the third act, even though I think it's a little goofy and over the top, it's still fucking great. I don't like it as much as one. You know what I mean?
I think they were trying to like basically pay off the whole Greek tragedy thing. Like she's the star of this Greek tragedy that she's gonna star in. They're doing it there, and they're really leaning into that, I guess. But like you're right, it doesn't quite work. I think the Mickey stuff works a little bit.
I love Mickey.
I
love
mean,
his reveal, and I love the fact that he is the one at the end that does the jump scare instead of Mrs. Loomis. You know, like that's another great idea.
The idea of like having Jerry O'Connell hanging there and then they lower him down, and then it's kind of like, okay, what are we doing? And you're right. The thing with like Mrs. Loomis goes on a little bit too long. She could have killed Sydney like 10 minutes ago. She's still just like monologuing. Maybe Cotton should have came in earlier. I don't know. But it's still fun. Like when Sydney is like swinging that axe and shit's kind of fun. Like I'll admit, especially when I was younger, it's fun to watch. I know it's
as
ridiculous.
A kid, this was my favorite. Like easily, when I was a child, Scream 2, I would have fought to the death that it was my favorite. And then as I got older and I started doing Sledgehammer Horror, I did a full-on marathon one night to write down my pros and cons of each movie and why which one was. We were doing a Scream franchise ranking. And during that franchise ranking, I realized there was a lot of stuff in this movie that, as an older man, get off my lawn. Just didn't hold up well for me, you know. But again, I could sit down at any point and watch this quadrilogy of movies over and over. You know, if somebody was like, "Hey, I've never seen Scream," oh, guess what we're doing on Saturday? You know, like it would not. Just like I have a lot of people that shit on Scream 3. While I think it's the weakest in the franchise, I fucking love Scream 3. I have a lot of fun with Scream 3. If you make 4 movies and your weakest movie is Scream 3, holy shit, you've done something right. I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street has Freddy's Dead. Friday the 13th has Jason Takes Manhattan. Halloween has almost every single one of them. But Scream only has Scream 3. That's really the weak one. So I'd be pretty happy with that.
I just watched Scream 3 not too long ago, maybe like a month ago, because in my head it was better than it was, and then I watched it and it didn't live up to that at all. And I'm like, okay, I guess Scream 4 is better, because in my head it was kind of like 2-1, 3-4, I guess. But you know what I don't like about Scream 4 is like, I don't know if this was like something to do with like Courtney Cox or what, but they put like a big haze over the entire film. It's like they stretched out pantyhose over the lens, or they messed with the white exposure. Because if you watch it, any scene that's got like daytime scenes, or like when a car is driving down the street, the headlights are like blown the fuck out. And I'm like, why are they doing this? All I could figure is like they're trying to soften the look of like these, you know, Courtney Cox has gotten older, the plastic surgery is not looking great. I don't know, but it's so jarring to watch. And I'm like, oh, you know.
And that's always a bummer too, when you find these, when you like you said, you being a cinephile, you're going to really dig deep into all these things that a lot of people may not pay attention to. And I'm hoping that we don't get a lot of that with Scream 5. And actually, by the time this airs, you guys have seen Scream 5. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I enjoyed it too. And there obviously we'll be doing another franchise ranking for Scream now that Scream 5 is out. But I don't want to talk about Scream 5 quite yet. I want to go back to Scream 2. When you think about Scream 2, we talked about what scene affected you the most, John, but what would you say your favorite scene is from Scream 2?
I know what my least favorite scene is. It's the one with Sarah Michelle Gellar, because it feels so like lopped into the movie out of nowhere. It's like they're trying to redo Casey Becker. Like we got Buffy, we'll like work it into the movie. She's not really friends with any of them. Well, we'll put that classroom scene in there, so it kind of gels. And I'm like, that scene is probably where the movie stumbles the most. But my favorite scene, damn, it's definitely the scene where they're just shooting the shit. It feels like a scene that could have been taken out of like the Big Lebowski. It's just like a hangout scene, you know. It's a lot of fun.
See, I'll always be so partial to the cop getting the pole through his head on the car. Like,
well, that's the best. That's one of the best. I mean, short of Randy for me. Did you know that scene actually wasn't intended to be that way? That it was supposed to like go through like his shoulder or something like that. But because of the stunt man, the way it was shot, it looked like it was lined up with his face. And they're like, that's fine. We can work with that. We can make it better. And you're right. When they show it and he's still like gargling, like that is, that's one of those scenes where you're like, that made it through the sensors. It's kind of like when Steve's guts is hanging out. You're like, that made it through. That's great.
Yeah.
You know, you watch those older movies like Friday the 13th sequels back when they were so hardcore with the censors, and it's like, there's barely any blood. How are these movies like so like, you know, revered when it's like there's barely anything to them sometimes?
Yeah, oh, the MPAA definitely had a heyday with the Friday the 13th movie.
Right. And then Scream, it's like they, especially with Scream 1, they brought it back a little bit. I love that. But that is a great scene. I do love when they're trying to, they're trying to move the police great and like they're crawling over. And the whole time is just like, I can't open the door, got to go over the window. She hits the horn. The tension is fantastic. I mean, it's a little cut short when like he miraculously gets out of the car, runs around the block, shows up behind Haley, and you're just like, well, that's bullshit, but okay. I mean, dumb. Again, I think that's a product of Haley was supposed to be the killer, and they changed it at the last minute, and then like, well, we still have this great scene with the, her crawling over him, but yeah, that scene is still great. I love that scene.
I do too. Like, but that's where it starts. Like, because if it's me, I'm gonna take the mask off. I'm not gonna crawl over him. I'm just gonna take that mask off and be like, gotcha.
Right. But movie's got a movie. We got another 30 minutes of movie to go. Another scene that I really like, and I know it's a little contrived to have like so much of this in like a film major department, is like when Dewey and Gail are watching the footage, and again that's a little messy too, but like when Gail is going through like the soundstage room and she's like going from like sound panel to sound panel, and she's kind of moving and he's just kind of creeping back and forth. That's pretty great too. That really, I remember the first time I watched that, I was like, they're gonna kill Gail, and and in my head I'm like, she has it coming, because traditionally when you watch movies like this, you think the obnoxious character who is like a real pain in the ass, they always get theirs. So I remember watching that, I'm like, Gail has it coming. She's a cold bitch. She's gonna die, and then like Dewey gets stabbed instead, and I'm like, and that scene is pretty gut wrenching too. It's like he's banging on the glass, and you're like, he's not gonna survive this twice. We played this game in the first movie. There's no way he's. And then sure enough, the stretcher's being brought out. But yeah, that's all great. I just remembered something. You were asking about like my history with this movie. I remember like the Christmas after I rented it with my dad. It was like, back in the days of Blockbuster, my dad got me this like double-decker VCR, and like the main purpose was just to like basically copy movies from Blockbuster. Like, so like you could put a little piece of scotch tape over the edge and then just record from the top decker to the lower decker. Right. And nobody had them at the time because it was like 98 or something like that. And my dad, he got one and he was like, all right, just go rent movies from Blockbuster and copy them, and we'll save money that way, But for me, I started fucking with it all the time. I was like re-editing the movie, like Scream 2. I was like, because at the end they have like the cast call with like the different names and just like my favorite scenes. And I'm just like re-editing the movie from tape 1 to tape 2, tape 1 to tape 2, like the way they used to do in the 70s almost, or as close as you can get to it for like a kid who's like 9 years old. And for me, that was like the origins of like, I love editing. I love this. When can I? So ever since that, it just kind of escalated into like, what was it? Sony Vegas, I think was my first editor, going back to like back in the day, and never looked back. It's just like, I don't know. I think there's definitely a part of me that's probably like a tiny bit OCD, who loves doing puzzles. And like, I think anybody who's an editor can kind of get that a little bit. It's like that perfectionist element to them, that they just love putting the pieces together. And then when it's done, it's so damn gratifying. And that all kind of started with Scream 2. I re-edited like all my favorite kills and scenes and like whatever I liked, I would cut out like the Sarah Michelle Gellar shit. Don't need that.
And let me show you the highlights.
Yeah. Right. So like for me, it was very much like a form-fitting movie that kind of got me to where I am now. It's like, I don't know if Burns Reviews really exists without Scream 2 in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? Right. So that's why it means so much to me,
Right. Well, and now we know how much Scream 2 means to you, but now I kind of want to throw you a curveball here for a second, John. Even though we're talking about Scream, I got my little buddy Ghostface here, and he's got a question for you. What's your favorite scary movie, John? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
I mean, Scream 2 is definitely in the conversation of all time. See, and I'm like a cinephile, so like I'm gonna be like, well, give me a subgenre, because like Hereditary is not like Scream 2. One's a slasher, one's like an emotional roller coaster. But I have no problem saying Scream 2. I'm not gonna wake up tomorrow and be like, oh, I should have said The Shining or The Exorcist. I'm like, no, man. it's such a rewatchable movie for me that I'm just like, yeah, that's perfectly fine being my answer, no regrets. So like,
Right.
yeah, I'll like I said, I'll die on that hill. Scream 2, man. Scream 2.
Run it, buddy. Well, man, we always end these with the same question, my friend. I've had a great time talking with you about Scream 2, and I can't wait to talk to you in the future for you guys in the past because you already watched our thing, but for our top 10 most disappointing horror movies of all time. But now we got to end this with a skull count. Now, I know that you are deep in the genre, so we're not being critics here. We're not going to be judging this on acting, production, nothing like that. We're judging. I know the answer, man, but I gotta ask. I've asked it on every other 243 episodes, so I gotta ask it to you too. We're ranking it on a skull count by how much it affected you. So 0 skulls, not effective. 5, very effective. What would your ranking of Scream 2 be?
I mean, considering like I said, it launched me into being like a video editor, movie lover. The fact that it takes place at a college where the characters are film majors, and then I said, that looks great, I want to do that. I gotta go 5. Like it really kind of curved my life a little bit. I'm like, this is, and then I went to film school and I'm like, all right, this is not nearly as polished as.
So when are we gonna start talking about sequels?
What?
I said,
yeah.
I just picture you in film school. Like, so when do we talk about sequels, guys?
No,
like,
I just have to watch Citizen Kane for like the 10th time again.
Well, man, I do want to thank you so much, guys. We are at the third act. The end credits are about to roll. So I'm going to take you back to the beginning and remind you, all the social media links are down here in the description. So make sure you're giving him a follow. Make sure you're subscribing. I appreciate him coming on, and I know that you'll appreciate his content too. So, John, don't go anywhere, my friend. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, as always, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.